Hello and welcome to our first Dreamweaver website design project. In this series you'll learn how to build a complete website from start to finish using Dreamweaver CS6. You can use your own images and resources for this project, or if you prefer you can download all of the project files shown in these tutorials. You can also get the complete series manual in printed or ebook format along with the high definition video tutorials from wizibooks.com. In this lesson, we're going to be working on the content area and the footer. Now, at the moment, you can see all the text in this area is quite squashed up. And the reason for that, I'm just going to switch back to Dreamweaver. When we entered our reset at the beginning, when we was creating our CSS file, we set all the margin, padding and border space to 0. And that's why it looks so squashed up here. There's no margin or padding space set in these elements. Now each of our pages is going to contain slightly different content, but we can still format the text elements within that area to look a little bit better. So let's do that now. Let's switch over to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to create a couple more selectors. But first of all, I'm going to need a new section. This will be a section for my text elements. So I'll start the line off with a comment, text elements, and I'll close that comment, and we'll come down underneath that heading, and we're going to need a style for our H1 tags. So we'll type in the H1 selector, and we also want a selector for our P tags. So again, we'll type in a selector for that. Now if you've got your window arranged in split view, we'll be able to see what's happening to our text as we change the code in the CSS file. So at the moment our heading is pushed right up against our banner and there's no space underneath it. And you'll notice also that the text is pushed right up against the edge of this wrapper div. So what I'm going to do before we start formatting our text elements is I'm going to come down to the containers section and find the content area, and in here I'm just going to put a little bit of padding all the way around the content area. So I'll do that by typing padding, and we'll give it 10 pixels of padding all the way around. And now when I come across and click in the preview area, the padding around it should be applied. And in fact it hasn't been applied, so I'm guessing I've done something wrong here. So let's just check, make sure we've spelt everything correctly. Yep, that's okay. Content, padding 10 pixels. I haven't forgotten my semicolon at the end there. So I'm guessing there must be something wrong in the HTML. Let's just go and check. If we switch across to the source code for HTML, so we'll come down to the content area, and there's my problem. I've set up the div, but I've missed out the ID bit. So let's put ID in there. And hopefully now when we click across, there it is, it's updated. So it's got that 10 pixels of padding around it now. So this little error highlights how important it is to be able to understand the code and to go and find the issues when they arise. Okay, let's switch back to our CSS file. So we've added a bit of padding, and that padding's coming around the content area, and that gives us a little bit of space around the heading. There's still not enough space underneath this H1 heading at the moment. We don't want our paragraph of text pushed so close up against the bottom of it. So we'll increase that space at the bottom of the H1. We'll scroll up. Here's the H1 selector, and we'll just add 10 pixels of margin on the bottom. So margin dash bottom 10 px. Finish it off, and then when we click over, we get that little bit of space just underneath our heading. It would be a good idea to do the same thing for our paragraphs. If we have two paragraphs of text, we don't want them bunched up close together. So we'll come in the P tag and we'll do the same thing. So we'll type margin bottom 10 pixels. And when we come across and click, you'll see now that both of our paragraphs of text have been separated. The text itself at the moment is also a little bit squashed up, and this is because it's using single line spacing. I'm going to change the line spacing, I think, for this P tag, and we'll make it 1.5 line spaces. And to do that, we change the line height. So line height, and we're going to make this 150%. That gives us 1.5 line spaces. We'll close it off with our semicolon, and then when we click in the preview area, you'll see that that text is now spaced out much better. So we'll save this. We'll come up to save and choose save all, and then we'll come across to the browser and have a quick look at what it looks like now that we've updated it. So we've got our little bit of spacing around it. We've got our space underneath our heading. There's 10 pixels of space between our paragraphs, and also our line spacing has been increased to 1.5. Okay, now let's go and work on the footer area. So we'll switch back to Dreamweaver, and in our CSS code we'll scroll down to the bottom here where we've got the footer selector. The first thing we'll do is we'll add the border along the top. If I just switch over to the finished version and scroll down to the footer area, you can see we've got this red border along the top of the footer. So that's what we'll work on next, but also note that our text is center aligned and it's italicized. So we'll also look at how we do that. So let's go back to Dreamweaver, and in the footer section, the first thing we'll do is add that line at the top. That's a border, so we'll say border dash top, and we want this to be a 2 pixel red solid line. We'll finish with a semicolon and click in our preview, and there we've got our line at the top. Now again, it's still a little bit squashed up, so we need to add a little bit of padding, and we'll add that around the text element itself. We also want to center align this text and make it italic. But if we apply that formatting to the P tag, all of our text will be affected. So we need to specifically target the P tag within our footer area. So I'm going to create another selector called footer space P, and that will target specifically any P tags that are inside the footer area. So we'll place our cursor in there, and the first thing we'll do is we'll align the text to the center. So that's done by text align and center. And again, we might want to format this row slightly different because there's a couple of other things to go in there. So we'll just tidy this code up a little. So we've got our descending selector here, the footer P. We'll place our cursor at the end of the text align statement, and we'll also add the font style. So font style, and we'll make this italic. Let's come over here and click. Now you can see that the text has jumped to the center and it's become italicized. So I'll scroll down a little bit further, and we'll add one more rule in here. We need a little bit of padding above and below our text. So we'll make padding, and we'll have 10 pixels top and bottom and 0 pixels left and right. So let's see how that affects our text over here, and that gives us a nice bit of space above and below our footer text. So again, let's save this, and we'll come back to our web page and preview. So this is what it looked like before, and now that we've made the changes, we've got our line and our little bit of padding, and of course the text is formatted correctly. So our web page is really looking good now. and hopefully yours is looking the same as this, and if it is, you're right on track. If you found this series of videos helpful and you want to receive updates on video tutorials as they're released, why not subscribe to my channel? And don't forget to like and share it with your friends.